Hi, I'm Peter Capaldi. I play the Doctor, and you're watching EMS Productions.
Hi everyone, welcome along to a brand new video and the start of a series of very special videos. As you may or may not know, this Saturday, the 22nd I believe of October, not only is it the release of the first episode of Class, but it's also the 10th anniversary of the first ever episode of Torchwood. So I'm a huge fan of Torchwood, so I thought I'd do a bit of a sort of celebration. So throughout this week there's going to be 4 or 5 or maybe even 6 different Torchwood related videos focusing on different aspects and just lots of things to focus on to celebrate such a brilliant show. Today, it's quite a vague title, but I kind of just wanted to sort of have a general discussion about things in Torchwood across all 4 series, the different themes and different things that happen and whether that all worked overall or not, different characters, this kind of thing. Just to give us, it's more of a just general discussion of Torchwood, I think, is what I'm aiming for this video, and it's a slightly longer one as you can probably see from the duration. But I wanted, as it's the celebratory sort of, a celebratory kind of video, I thought I'd do it a bit longer. So I'm going to get into talking about the themes of the show, I guess. Might as well start at the beginning with Series 1. Well, the first series, of course, back in 2006, starting on the 22nd of October, as I said before, with Everything Changes, the very first episode. It, of course, we get all the introduction to all the characters and the Torchwood team, the Torchwood hub, and all this kind of thing at the start. I won't run through the first episode today because I have done a review of it, which you'll be able to see on Wednesday, I think. So look out for that, where I quite like my video, actually, my review of that. It's quite a good, I feel, insight into how it's actually a very good way to start a TV show. So look out for that on Wednesday. I'm just going to do some general discussion, why not? I found that one of the main themes of Torchwood is definitely death, clearly because it's an adult show, so let's all focus on death and depressing things, kind of thing, I think. And maybe it's Russell's or is it Christian Mills, I'm not quite sure. They're very kind of grim and depressing take on death being just black, just darkness. They love the word darkness on Torchwood. Everything's very dark. They love using the word darkness and dark and evil. It's a very black and dark show, I think. But no, there's this running throughout the first 2 series really is this theme of darkness and death. What happens when you die? They seem obsessed with knowing that. I guess, I don't know. Would you be? I'm not sure. But they seem to rather really need to know that. And so they keep on asking these various different people who always love to give cryptic clues as to what it is. Just the darkness kind of thing. What is the darkness? Ugh. So it's a fairly depressing and slightly grim plotline. But it's fairly interesting, and I mean that obviously kicks off quite a lot in Series 2 when Owen dies and we get all that kind of stuff about him. Well, he's not dead, but he is dead. Meets the Grim Reaper, has been to the darkness, come back, isn't really living properly, and it's all just a bit messed up, really. But it's quite an interesting plotline, I think, and I mean, it's quite a sad moment for sort of having Owen's death in there. I was quite sad about, well, at least the initial one. It's all quite complicated. I mean, their sort of storylines and stuff. But anyway, I should probably focus on Series 1 a bit more. And, well, the first 2 series are very much the sort of standalone episode style, unlike the last 2, which are just sort of mini-series of focusing on one alien invasion kind of thing that we're looking at. And I think that's where Miracle Day falls quite badly. But I'll get onto that a bit later. And so these first 2 series, you've got 13 episodes in each, like an old series of Doctor Who from the early ones, and it's kind of just 13 standalone episodes near enough. Yes, there's the odd linking word or slightly linking plot point, but they're pretty much 13 separate adventures in each series. Okay, maybe other than the sort of like finale, which are kind of each series, which is the last 2 episodes are kind of linked. But you've certainly got a good 23 or 24 different stories through the first 2 series of Torchwood, which is pretty good. It gives you loads of variety of different sort of things. Obviously, you'd think potentially it'd be a bit difficult to do something more than alien invasions every week. But I think because of the which I think if Torchwood was made for had to be made for a Doctor Who audience and to appeal to kids, I don't think it would have worked so well because they wouldn't have been able to explore some of the darker themes and concepts which gave more variety in the storytelling. Because otherwise it would have just been alien invasions every week and people would have been bored of that extremely quickly. So when you sort of focus it on an adult audience and you can have lots of different, more grim, I guess, ideas. I mean, I just think of... I watched it quite recently. well, it's quite a sort of insignificant episode, I guess. You may remember the episode Adrift from near the end of series 2, featuring Ruth Jones from Gavin and Stacey and various other programmes, and this one where her son goes missing or something, and she's all miserable about it. She sets up some support group to try and find him, but Jack's been he's actually being sucked up by the riff, and Jack's been doing some dodgy stuff to try and keep them hidden because they've been destroyed, and it's just thoroughly depressing. Genuinely, I watched it and it just felt like one of the most depressing pieces of television I've ever watched. I'm not saying it's bad, I'm just saying it's thoroughly depressing because nothing positive comes out of it. There is no happy ending. It's just all miserable and depressing, really. So that's just an example of the sort of different aspects, because that's nothing to do with it. There's no threat as such in that episode, and yet it's a very interesting episode, if a bit depressing. So it sort of gives you a lot more variety in the storytelling. It's the aliens aren't all there to take over the world and this kind of thing. It's all much more varied, I think, which is good for the show. I mean, some of them you don't even have aliens at all. Look at the episode Countryside from series 1, where it's just a load of crazy cannibals who are eating people, which I don't think you'd find on Doctor Who, frankly. So that's that's just another example of how there's so much more variety than... Because it feels like it could have become the 1970s unit era Doctor Who. I know it's a bit different with Torchwood and the Rift and stuff, but if you were aiming at a Doctor Who audience, then it could have skewed a bit towards that, so it's good that it didn't, and that they aimed at the right audience. And it pulls off series 1 and 2 quite well. I mean, looking overall at sort of series 1 and 2, series 1 in particular is very mixed. There's sort of... The first episode's very good, Countryside's very good, the finale's quite good, Captain Jack Harkness, the one where he goes back in time and meets the real Captain Jack Harkness, is really good. But then you have these sort of frankly terrible episodes like the Sex Gas one, I think Cyberwoman, that's pretty terrible, and these sort of just average, the ones that sort of... They're not memorable at all episodes, like I think it's called... The one with the fairies, I think it's called like Small Worlds or something, which is just kind of completely average and unmemorable at all. So it was a much more mixed bag in series 1. I mean, there are some good episodes in there, but it just feels overall a bit average. I do actually quite... There's this slightly random episode called Random Shoes, there you go, which you may remember, with the one that essentially is done from the point of view of this random person that we've never met before. And I actually really like it as a concept. It's a very interesting, different type of storytelling. It feels a bit like the Love and Monsters experiment. It's a different type of experiment, but it feels like... I have a feeling Russell wrote that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I just feel like he might have, or at least he was involved in the writing of it. And it feels just like Love and Monsters style of a completely experimental episode, which I think is quite interesting to sort of have it from his point of view throughout. Okay, he's already kind of died, so that's kind of complicated, and sort of him remembering the fact that he's died and everything. It's all just very interesting, something that they can explore in Torchwood, which you never really get in Doctor Who. So I think it's one of the biggest things that I like about Torchwood, is that it can explore interesting concepts that you're never going to see in Doctor Who because they're slightly too adult to fit into it. So I think that must be one of the reasons I love it. So yeah, series 1 overall is a bit average. It's probably the 3rd best series of Torchwood, ahead of Miracle Day, but behind the other 2. So there isn't too much more to say about it, really, I guess. I don't know whether I want to do a whole detailed review of all the episodes and the plot lines, everything of the series. I don't feel like this is the right sort of video for that, so I won't. I'll just do sort of quick summaries of the various series. So series 1's good, not great, really. Series 2, however, I think does very much go up a gear. It sort of feels like they found a bit more consistency in the writing, because maybe that was lacking in the first series. They've got a more solid selection of good stories to go in there, right from the off, when you've got the very first scene with the blowfish and the sports car, which just kind of is Torchwood, essentially, in one sort of image. An alien driving a sports car around Cardiff is literally Torchwood for you. So that was just sort of the perfect way to introduce series 2 and all the mysterious stuff around Jack, because he left Torchwood and then came back and all this and whatever. And then there's just lots of consistently good episodes through that series. I mean, there's barely any that I'd say I don't like, really. There's the one with the Ghost Maker or something, I can't remember what it is. The one with the old film and stuff. That's a bit average. But other than that, there isn't really too many that I'd say that I really don't like. We obviously get Martha Jones coming in through the middle of the series, I think 6, 7 and 8, or 5, 6 and 7, somewhere in the middle of the series for 3 or 4 episodes, and she adds a nice element to it as well. Nice to actually have another Doctor Who crossover, I guess, with a new character. Particularly, I think, as she was a bit underused in Doctor Who. Only had 1 series, probably wasn't written great by Russell, and whatever. That's probably a video for the future, I guess. So it was nice to give her a bit more of an outing, because although she only did 1 series of Doctor Who, she still ended up ultimately doing an extra, like, 5 episodes of Doctor Who and 3 episodes of Torchwood. So she didn't actually do too badly overall, just she wasn't really a consistent character, I guess. So that was nice to add that in as well, bring her in. And it all gets a bit grim towards the end of the series. I don't want to focus on the very fine ending of the final episode of Series 2. What's it even called? Exit Wounds. I don't really want to focus on that in this video because a certain other video might be focusing on a certain sad departure of certain characters at the end of that episode later this week. So I won't go into that bit of the series so much. But it does feel in Series 2 like there's slightly more of an arc, whereas Series 1 very much is connected by the word darkness occasionally, but that's about it. And then Series 2 you've got Grey, or I found Grey, the Captain John Hart, and something to do with Grey at the start, and a bit about about Jack, because Grey is Jack's brother, and all this stuff about his family and the history. It's nice to see finally delve into Jack's history a bit more as well, all this stuff in the Beauchene Peninsula, if I could say it, because we've heard about sort of it mentioned off the cuff in Doctor Who. So it's nice to actually see it and see what happened there and how he's been traumatised by losing his brother at like 7 years old or something. And of course you get that great episode, I think it's called Adam, with the Adam, the mind, the memories like creature guy who goes inside everybody's memories and stuff and creates himself within them. And that's actually one of my favourite episodes. I think it's a really, really clever idea to have this sort of thing that writes himself into people's memories so he can be there 3 days and it feels like he's been there 20 years. That, I think, is a brilliant concept and is pulled off really well as well. So that's one of the highlights, I think, of Series 2 of Torchwood. And what was I saying about the arcs? Yeah. So I'd like there to be more of an arc generally in Torchwood. I love it in Doctor Who, and I'd like to see more of it. I would like to have seen more of it in Torchwood even. Got to focus past tense, sadly, because there's no more series, probably ever. So that's a bit of a disappointment that you don't get that quite as much of an arc, because you kind of in Series 2 you get all this stuff about John Hart in the first episode, a bit of Grey, him mentioning Grey, and then you hear nothing about it until we hear a bit about who Grey is in episode I think 5 or 6, and there's basically no other reference. I think there's one other reference to Grey before the finale, so it's not really an arc. It's just a load of standalone episodes with the odd relevant line and a big finale. Is kind of what it is, I think. So I find that a little bit disappointing personally. But when they've got the consistently good stories, I don't think it's quite as bad. It's when you have Series 1 that's sort of a mixture of average stories, and then you don't have an arc either, not building up to anything. I find that's a little bit disappointing. So there you go. But overall, Series 2 is excellent. I think it's my second favourite series, so you know what the best one is of the show. And I think that it's it almost feels like nowadays, I think those first few series almost feel like classic Torchwood, if you could call it that, sort of the original series, the episodes in the Torchwood Hub, and you get to see the old Torchwood Hub, the full Torchwood team. It just feels a bit sort of classic Torchwood now, I guess, even though it's not really classic compared to the others, but it feels like we have classic Who and new Who. It almost feels like classic Torchwood and slightly newer Torchwood, I guess you'd call it. So it's just a nice feeling, I think, having that hub, having the 5 main characters of the show throughout, and then we get to sort of have different episodes focusing on different characters. You can very much see through Series 1 and 2 that they've picked out, they've said this episode we're going to focus on this character, because I think when you've got 5 main characters, it's quite challenging to give them all decent roles in every episode. So I think they went down a quite good route of sort of focusing certain episodes on a certain character and something in an aspect of their life or something that affects them only, kind of thing. Have the other characters in the story and kind of having the odd bits, but then sort of focus it on each one of these characters to kind of give us more of an insight into their character. I think that was a very good idea from whoever came up with it, personally. So I think that, because it's not really so much like Doctor Who where the Doctor is the main character. I know Captain Jack is kind of the main character of Torchwood, but it doesn't feel like the other members of Torchwood are like the companions in Doctor Who, where they're very much secondary, or at least kind of meant to be secondary, I guess. They are still very much the Torchwood team, the main characters of the show, so I think that's why there's more of a focus on keeping the main characters as well, and not just shoving them off to the side. I do generally feel like sort of Tosh and Yanto are probably the least important characters. Gwen's very much the second in command, second most important. I think then Owen in the middle there, who's quite important in Series 2, to be fair. And then probably Yanto becomes a bit more after he does nothing in the first few episodes, and Tosh is... I guess she's the most kind of shut-off character overall, really. It's kind of a tragic story, I guess, with her, that she's always loved Owen, and then she doesn't get to meet him and tell him until the very end, and then they die. And it's all a bit sad. She clearly sort of has a lot... To be fair, most of the Torchwood team are slightly messed up. And with struggles in their life, I sense they kind of... I guess... Well, we see in the episode Fragments, the penultimate episode of Series 2, we get their backstory of how they got into Torchwood. And I think that massively enhances their characters. I won't go into that because that's for another video, but that's one of the best episodes of the show, I think. That it really... Those last two episodes of Series 2 are two of the best episodes of Torchwood ever, because they really do work brilliant. Episode 12 is sort of enhancing the characters, and episode 13 is just a brilliant finale. That all works out perfectly. So, to finish off my Series 1 and 2 rambling, Series 1 is good, Series 2 is great. The episodes, there's not enough consistency in Series 1, but there is in Series 2 to make it work. I'd like more of a story arc. The characters are all brilliant. Personally, I really like every single one of the Torchwood team. I guess if I kind of rank them, I think Jack and Gwen are the two favourites, then Owen, then Tosh, then Yanto. I know. I've never been too fussed about Yanto, I'm sorry. But maybe it's because I'm not a teenage girl, I don't know. But personally, Yanto's just... I'm not saying I dislike him, but he's my least favourite of the five, I think. But that's just me. So, finally, after like 15 minutes, I apologise for my slightly rambling video, but I want to celebrate Torchwood, talk about all the good that's in Torchwood, so that's what I'm doing. Series 3, Children of Earth. Let's get into it. So, we get to the start of something very different in Torchwood. We get to Series 3, or Children of Earth as it's known as, pretty much, where it aired mid-2009 in the midst of the Doctor Who sort of specials era of not many Doctor Who episodes for a year. So I guess it was quite important to have that extra bit of Torchwood. We come off it's over, whatever, I think it's like a year and a half after Series 2 of Torchwood even ended. So it's been quite some time waiting for Torchwood to return. And they've taken a completely different approach to it this time. I'm not sure quite... I don't know the circumstances around why they didn't commission a full series. I don't know whether Brussels said, oh, can we just do a short series? Or whether the BBC said, can we try something different? I'm not sure personally. Do let me know in the comments below. I'd love to know why suddenly they decided to change up and do a different style of storytelling and series length. Because obviously going from 13 45 to 50 minute episodes to 5 1-hour episodes over 5 days is quite a change, I think. So personally I think it works very well, but it's quite a change. And so we come off the back of losing 2 members of the Torchwood team, and we've had Stolen Earth and Journey's End, so which had the Torchwood sort of main 3 left in, and I guess didn't really do too much to the characters, but just sort of we had them involved again in something else, which would have been in like June or July 2008, I guess. God, that's a long time ago, isn't it? Scary. 8 years. Over 8 years since the end of Series 4. Wow, it's depressing, isn't it? So we get to Children of Earth. It feels like a different kind of show. It sort of feels like almost a political drama, a sort of a crossover political sci-fi kind of drama, and it's all more political based, I guess, because we've got all this focus on the government and these ministers and stuff getting involved with everything, and all this slightly secretive hush-hush stuff. And of course, with another thing of Jack's past that we didn't know about before, with the first initial flashback in the start of the very first episode, back to like the 60s, I think it is, and this mysterious light that they send children into. No idea what's going on, that it's Jack and everything, and it's just a nice way to lead it in. And then it's just brilliantly worked, these 5 episodes. I think it's an interesting idea to sort of have 5 episodes over 5 days in a week and sort of have it all as a 1-week series. I imagine it was very popular at the time because I didn't watch it when it aired. I was way too young, and my parents didn't let me go near it, so because I was 11 at the time, so that'd be quite well, I can understand that. So it was a few years before I actually watched that. I knew Torchwood, to be fair. I think it was 2013 or 14, so I'm fairly new to Torchwood to be technically, but I love it, so I can do videos on it, whatever. Stop rambling, Elliot. Torchwood, Children of Earth. It's a brilliant series. It's a different type of show. I've kind of already covered this stuff. And so running through the episodes, we get rid of the Torchwood hub. Mistake. Why did you do that, Russell? Why did you do that? I'm not actually sure why they did do that, to be fair. Was it just the storytelling, or was there a reason they couldn't afford it or something? I don't know. Wanted to make himself less bound to that? Was it because of the plans for Miracle Day, so they wanted to make themselves less bound to that? I'm not quite sure. But it was a mistake, personally, because it kind of kills the ties to the UK and basically allows Miracle Day to happen, which wasn't the greatest idea ever, personally. But that's about the only negative of the whole 5 episodes. I mean, there's just so many brilliant things to look at it. The whole Children of Earth, children plotline and these creatures, the 456, the mysterious name, they never even get a proper name, just the radio wave or something I can't remember exactly, something to do with the radio wave they emit or something like that. And there's the interesting idea with the children being sort of connected to that, and the speaking through them and completely frozen permanently and everything all around the world, and just figuring all this out through the episode and stuff. It's all just very interesting and very well done. And actually there's some seriously dark themes towards the end of this sort of 5 episodes. I mean, it's not too bad early on. It's a little bit grim and stuff, but it's not too bad. But so when you get towards episodes 4 and 5, where you sort of get the that government meeting, I think is in episode 4, where they're deciding that they're going to send off all the children to be killed by these aliens, or used as drugs, essentially, by these aliens. It sort of, I don't know how realistic it is, but it sort of shows how brutal the government could be to try and save the Earth and save their backs, and that they'd actually send off tens of millions of children to their death, essentially, just to kind of keep the Earth going and keep themselves safe and everything. It's a pretty grim prospect, but thankfully, of course, was it Lois Abiba, I think her name is, who gets the good old Torchwood contact lenses in there and goes in, catches them all out and sort of stuffs their plans. But then it gets even more grim when Jack has to kill his own grandson, which is pretty brutal. Frankly, they didn't really try to make it look nice. It was a brutal killing and a brutal death, just overall. So it's a pretty grim end. I mean, I guess you do have the sort of miserable stuff with Jack being kind of disintegrated. It was another exploration of how much Jack can survive as well. That he's literally been blown, had a bomb planted inside him and absolutely blown to pieces, and yet his limbs grow back with no flesh on them, and his limbs and all the flesh and stuff grows back and everything, and then he can be sort of poured a load of concrete on him and he still survives that as well. It just kind of shows, making it ever more clear that Jack is completely immortal to absolutely everything ever, kind of thing, I think. So it's all a bit grim, but it's a good focus on that. Of course, Yanto dies as well. Personally, that didn't kill me because, as I said, I didn't care. That I never was as emotionally invested in Yanto as I was in the other 4 members of the crew. I don't know why, I just wasn't. So there you go. But I know it was like terribly sad for most people, and there's all the teenage girls who are obsessed with Yanto and bring back Yanto. This is the end of my life unless he comes back. We got to bring him back. It's a bit much, guys. Come on. But there you go. So overall, yeah, Children of Earth, I'm not doing a very good job of explaining it, but I do think it's a marvellous piece of storytelling. One of Russell's best pieces of work, I think, that he's done ever in the show. It's just a brilliant overall script, tying all the elements together. 5 episodes is a better length than 10 to try and tell a story. It's not feeling sort of loads of filler, but it's not rushed at the same time. And then I really, really love the final episode of Children of Earth, where you get all the people fighting against the soldiers. You get PC Andy comes out there, takes off his uniform and starts attacking the soldiers who are trying to take the kids as well. It's a brilliant piece of television, I think, overall. I sort of not done a very good job of it, but I do really think it's very brilliant. And it sort of leaves Jack, I guess, a bit scarred for life, kind of thing. I mean, and we get another shot of him in the end of Time, .2 episode, where we see Jack in the bar, because that's where he's kind of taken solace to, the Star Wars Cantina style space bar, after he's had to leave the Earth because he's killed his grandson and he can't really handle it. So he disappears for 2 years essentially, or at least I think it's 2 years. Yeah, 2 years essentially. And then we get Miracle Day. And so, sadly, Miracle Day happened, and it wasn't the show's greatest hour. I think it's made doubly disappointing that that was probably the final series of Torchwood we're ever going to get. It had to be Miracle Day. I mean, there's just so... it's just not really very good. It's way too prolonged. You could easily do that in 5 or 6 episodes, that story. There's lots of filler, lots of going around in circles, pointless plot sort of excursions that really are meaningless. And everything. I mean, it starts off, episode 1, there is some promise there. It is an interesting concept initially. How is the world going to cope when there's no death? When people just... the population is just permanently increasing by massive amounts. How would the Earth cope with that? And this guy, this murderer, paedophile guy I think it was, who's done unspeakable things and whatever, and he's got lucky and survived the death penalty because of this miracle and everything, and how he's going to cope with it all now. And it sort of starts off with that sort of promise, but then it all just goes all American, and it just starts going downhill through the various episodes. I think, I mean, Rex is an extremely unlikable character. There's nothing you can say other than that. He's just very unlikable. You don't want him to be win or successful because he's just very annoying, frankly. And that isn't a very good way to write. I can see what Russell was clearly trying to write him like that, but I don't think it works personally. I don't like. There's no point at which I'm feeling any remorse for Rex because he's just so annoying throughout. He's just an idiot towards Torchwood in general and just doesn't make you likeable, likeable at all. So that's a not sort of... I think that's a negative point that they did there with having him. I mean, Esther, you've got Esther Drummond, who's kind of feels like a sort of average character, really. She's not unlikable, but she's kind of just there, having a few of her own problems with her family and stuff. I think overall it just takes way too long to kind of get anywhere, give us any information, and by the time... and then even when we do in the final episode, episode 10, we have to wait 10 weeks, 10 whole episodes to get to it. And then the explanation is a bit complicated and hard to understand anyway about this whole the blessing thing that's been here since the dawn of time, and apparently Jack's blood that they said meant nothing, he kept on saying meant nothing, actually meant something, and because it was mortal blood or something like that, I don't know. It's all a bit wishy-washy and complicated. And then they tease stuff for a future series. This is only phase 1. We've got plan B to come. This is only the first stage, whatever, blah, blah, blah. There's future plans and everything. It's all a bit sort of vague and mysterious and complicated and whatever. There is some good stuff. I mean, the episode where they go back in history is quite good, with the one with Angelo Colasanto, I think his name is. I can't say that in American accent, so I won't. But that's quite a good sort of look back in Jack's past against something else different, which actually turns out to connect to the current day, and then sort of links to the next episode. This guy has tried not to die. He's basically trying to become Jack and be immortal and all this. And that's quite an interesting sort of character study, I guess. There's a few funny moments and good moments. I quite liked some of those scenes, I think it's in episode 2, when they're on the plane and Jack's being drugged and is dying and stuff, and there's all just these lots of just funny lines and good moments. So there's a bit of that, but overall it's just too long. The Americanized stuff doesn't work. I don't really like any of the American characters. I'm not caring about them. And it's generally just a bit frustrating, I think. So it's sort of a disappointing way to end the show. And actually I saw one criticism that someone gave, which I actually do think is quite good, and it's also kind of a criticism of Children of Earth, but a little bit less so, I think, is that it doesn't feel like a sort of an aliens... There is no aliens in the whole of Series 4, Miracle Day. Whereas Series 1 and 2, you're having a different alien every week for 26 episodes. You get a Miracle Day and you've got 10 episodes and there is no aliens, there's nothing. It's not sort of sci-fi in that sense, there's no aliens anymore, which is always what's been the sort of biggest thing of Doctor Who, and then the first few episodes of the series of Torchwood. That's all just completely gone for Miracle Day, and so I can really see why that lets it down as well. I mean, the blessing isn't an alien, it's just some random thing that's been there since the dawn of time, or something, I think. So yeah, I think that's one of the biggest problems, is there's just no alien threat throughout. And well, that was a bit of a depressing note to end on, wasn't it? I'm sorry, I guess I just have to be honest with the show, that it's had its up and downs. It's not a perfect show, nothing is. But 2 of the series are very good, 1's good, and Miracle Day's average. So I think that's a pretty good hit rate for 4 series of Torchwood. I wish there was going to be a 5th, but despite my video a couple of months ago, it's looking very unlikely. I sense that Torchwood will always be sort of remembered, but over time get more and more kind of forgotten, and people just won't really be bothered about it, come back too much. Personally, I know there's this Big Finish stuff, but Big Finish has never really sort of grabbed me that much. I think it's never been quite my thing, so I'm not sort of too fussed about this new show, Torchwood Archive, I think it is, Big Finish production, coming out. Oh no, I was extra disappointed that they got almost all the Torchwood team back, except for Owen. Come on, Byrne, come and do another episode, do some audio stuff. I'd love to hear Owen back, just to hear him again. He's one of my favourite characters of the show, so that's disappointing. But there you go, that's kind of a... It doesn't really answer the question of the title, did it work? But I guess it's kind of just a rambling look at the first of Torchwood in general, I think, and a sort of mixed celebration slash slightly disappointment at the show. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got something out of it, something new, a new take on something of Torchwood, I hope. And look out for all my videos coming out the rest of this week. I think I've got at least 3 or 4 more videos coming out through this week. And I'll talk about some Class stuff later in the week as well, because obviously Class episode 1 airs on Saturday. I'm sure that wasn't a coincidence to have it 10 years to the day since Torchwood. I'm sure that was planned. And I will be reviewing that episode at least, if not the whole thing, or all the episodes, I don't know. But I'll let you know more about that soon. So let me know your thoughts on Torchwood as a show, what you think worked throughout the series, what didn't. Sorry I didn't really answer the question, but I guess Torchwood did work for 3 series, but then Miracle Day happened, it wasn't very good, Russell had other projects, and it kind of all just petered out into nowhere really. And so that's why I also said he's never going to come back. So there you go, sorry to end on that slightly depressing note, but remember to like the video, subscribe if you're new here, watch out for the Torchwood videos the rest of this week, and I'll see you again for them very soon, probably tomorrow. Bye!